Good morning, everybody. Okay, big day. We're starting the 12th blessing of the Amidah. We've been studying the Amidah. We're making our way through it, and it contains the wisdom of all of Judaism. It's amazing. And I have a question for you. The other name for the Amidah is the Shmona Esrei. What does Shmona Esrei mean? Right. It means 18. Why? Because there are 19 blessings in the Shmona Esrei. Wait a minute. If the Shmona Esrei, or the Amidah, is supposed to have 18 blessings in it, then why does it have a 19th blessing? So here we are at the 12th, in the 12th blessing of the Amidah, and that's the extra mysterious blessing. And the story is like this. Originally, the Amidah was written by the Anshe Knesset Hagadol, the men of the Great Assembly. And they wrote this about 400 years before the Common Era, and they wrote the Amidah, and it had 18 blessings in it, which is why it was called the Shmona Esrei. About 500 years later, this blessing, which is the 12th in the order, but the last chronologically, was added to the blessings. So now there are 19. Why was this blessing added? Well, there was something going on at that time. It was about 100 years after the Common Era. The temple had been destroyed. The second temple had been destroyed by the Romans in Jerusalem. And there was a rise in fringe sects of Judaism that were threatening the authenticity of the transmission of the oral Torah. So we're talking about the Essenes and the Sadducees, and they were a real threat, and they were bringing down or threatening to bring down the transmission of oral Torah. So at that time, the head of the Sanhedrin, who was Rebbe Gamliel II, began searching for somebody who could compose a new blessing of the Amidah. But the problem is these 18 blessings were written by not just normal guys or normal scholars or rabbis, they're written by prophets. So how do you find somebody who can write and add another blessing to the Amidah? So they found somebody who was appropriate for the job. His name, Shmuel HaKatan, Samuel the Small One, who was known as the greatest of his generation. That's why he was called Samuel the Small One. Why was he called Samuel the Small One if he was the greatest one of his generation? Because he had the utmost humility. He didn't think of himself as being great or better or bigger than anybody else. He called himself Shmuel HaKatan, Samuel the Small One. Now, why did they look for him to, what was the purpose of this blessing? The purpose of the blessing was to create a blessing to pray for the downfall of the wicked, the downfall of the Rishoyim, the ones who were secretly infiltrating the Jewish people and threatening the integrity of our oral transmission. So these are called the Malshinim. In English we call them the wicked ones, I guess, would be probably the best way of putting it. So anyway, he composes this blessing, and I'm going to just read it to you, and then we'll discuss it a little bit more tomorrow. We say, "For the slanderers and the wicked ones, let there be no hope. May all their wickedness perish in an instant. May all your enemies, Hashem, be swiftly cut down and uprooted, etc., etc. And may the arrogant be swiftly cut down in our days." So this is a prayer against the wicked, and we'll discuss it just a little bit more tomorrow.